Hey guys, can you believe it's April already? Doesn't feel like it, like normally April feels here. How about you? So it is time to do the next installment of jobs for the month. So the first thing I want to talk about is, April is really the best time to harvest your pumpkins. Early April, really, the earlier the better. You're looking at me like I'm crazy. Okay, it's April Fool's Day. I had to throw something in, but not all that crazy when you consider the weather lately. I was actually going through some of my gardening books in preparation for this video, and it's just amazing how far behind we are because of the weather. Let me know in the comments if it's the same for you. If you're either held up by cold weather, rainy weather, something different than normal. It just feels like the whole gardening season has been pushed back. But hopefully things will be getting back to normal soon. At least here it looks like on the 10-day forecast, we only have one day with a tiny, tiny chance of rain. So we'll see if that holds up. So to talk about the first job, we're gonna go up to the cottage garden. So depending on your weather and climate, you may have bulbs blooming right now. You may have bulbs that are finishing up. You may have bulbs that haven't even started yet. But the one thing you have to remember, and this is the job that you don't do in any month, and that is to cut off the leaves of bulbs after they finish flowering. I know it's really tempting to want to tidy things up. You don't want to see a bunch of leaves with no flowers. You don't want to see a bunch of dead flowers. Okay, you can cut the flowers off. You can cut the stem of the flower off. You just have to leave the leaves, because that is where the energy for next year's bloom comes from. All that green has to be reabsorbed into the plant. The sun is putting energy into the leaves, it goes right into the bulb, and that is for next year. So if you cut them off, you're not going to have much to show for next year. Just about everyone now should be sowing vegetable seeds either indoors or out. If you've got, if you haven't passed your frost date, your last frost date, then you want to sow them indoors. If you have passed it, sow them outdoors. There's also some things you could be sowing outdoors even if you haven't passed your last frost date. And I did a video on that just a couple of days ago. I'll link it down below. April is a great time to plant some herbs. If your ground's not frozen and you don't have any hard freezes coming up, they can take a little bit of frost. Here's our Mediterranean herb garden, and it has come through our winter, which, okay, it's pretty mild, but we did have lots of hail, we'd had lots of frost, and it all did just fine. Got parsley, which technically is not a Mediterranean herb. We've got French thyme, German thyme, lemon thyme, German thyme, which is starting to bloom. Lemon thyme again, which is starting to bloom. Oregano, a couple different types of lavender. We've got two types of sage. We've got just the regular green sage. We've got a yellow sage that's variegated. Rosemary, fennel just starting. But I do have two new sages to plant. I have a purple sage and a tricolor sage. And there just so happens to be a couple of spots in this bed. So I'm going to put the purple sage here. I think it's going to look good with this blue hibiscus as its backdrop and the lavender here next to it, and then this bright green of this oregano. The great thing about Mediterranean herbs is they don't need any special care or treatment. They don't need good soil. They don't need good water. They do need lots of sunshine. That's the one thing they don't compromise on. But the drier and the rockier your soil is, the better. So if you want to add some gravel, some sharp sand, get that all mixed in there. So just dig a little hole about the size of the root ball and plant it at the same level it was growing in the container. Perfect. Just fill it in. You don't need to add fertilizer. You don't need to add amendment. Nothing. It's good to go. I've already got a drip line here for it. So it's ready. And that's pretty much going to fill in this entire area here. Now here in this spot, we've got the variegated sage, the regular traditional sage. I'm going to put the tricolor right here in this spot. These plants have been itching to get out of these pots, and I've been itching for weather to get out here and get them out of these pots. Yeah, there's lots of roots here, but that's okay. Especially for these, aren't starving for water. All the rain has kept them damp. But we are going to mess these up a lot just to get them to grow out into their new location. So I'll come back out here when I'm done filming and tee off of this drip line here and put one over to here so we can get that watered. Now, you southern gardeners like me, this is our last month to plant potatoes. So I have a video on this where I planted this bed and this container. And that includes the Ruth Stout method, which is, in my opinion, just about the easiest way that you can plant anything. So all these videos I'm mentioning will be linked down in the video description. At this time of year, things are going to start to grow fast as the weather starts to heat up. And so you want to make sure in the vegetable garden and in the ornamental garden, you have stakes ready and you start staking these plants before it's too late. The ones that need it, at least. It's going to be time soon, if it isn't already, where these seedlings that you've grown from seed inside the house or the garage or inside anything, it's going to start to be time to harden them off. And that just means get them used to being outside. They're cozy inside. They are now moving outside and they need a little transition period. So I have a video on a step-by-step process of doing this. I will link it below. It also includes a lazy man's version. In a nutshell, you bring them out for just a little bit the first day, a little bit more the second day, a little bit more the third day, a little bit more the fourth day. After about a week of that, they're getting used to the sun, they're getting used to wind, they're getting used to whatever the outside has to throw at them. And at the end of that, 5 or 6 day period, they're ready to be outdoors wherever you're going to put them. Now, if you have a cold frame, that can make the process easier. I have a video that I will link below on how I made this very simple cold frame out of reclaimed materials. And yesterday I had to put a lot of this in here. So I brought the tomatoes that I had in there already out. 20 minutes after I did that, it started hailing. I couldn't believe it, but they're fine. So I brought some of the dahlias out here. I'll leave this open for part of the day, close it. They'll be in here at night. There's a heat mat in there, so it does keep it a little bit warmer. And then after a few days in there, they can come out here and they'll be fine, and I can put something else in here. And speaking of dahlias, now is the time to continue taking cuttings. If you haven't started pre-sprouting your dahlias, now is the time to get that going. Guess what? I have a video on both of those subjects. Another video that I just did yesterday was sowing flower seeds indoors. And it's time for that too. In the vegetable garden, you want to continue to harvest what is growing, like these peas here. Now let me show you. This pea, see how it's thin when you look at it from this direction? That's not ready. This one right here is fat. It is ready. These here are fat, but they're starting to dry out. So they are past harvesting time. And these are basically ready to pull for seed. This kind here, they're going to be very starchy and not really that great to eat. Leaf lettuce, like this. Is this not gorgeous? Look at that. The best way to harvest these is just to start picking some of the outer leaves off. You almost hate to do it, it's so pretty, right? And this will just keep growing, growing and producing. And you'll just keep picking, picking, and picking. The same goes with, back to herbs. Herbs like parsley, dill, fennel, chives, even nasturtiums. Keep picking all of these herbs for use in the kitchen or medicinally, and they'll keep producing. Chive flowers are just starting to open. Now is a time for most of us who don't have snow on the ground to start tackling the weeding that needs to be done. I did a video just a few days ago on that very subject. I'm actually recognizing a theme here. Basically, if you just watch all my videos, then you don't need to watch this one. Here in the tropical garden to talk a little bit about tropicals such as citrus and avocado. If you're in a coastal zone and you are past all danger of frost, now is the time to plant citrus and avocado, or if you want to bring them in, if you grow them indoors during the winter, wherever you are, once the risk of frost is passed, you can bring them outside, start to feed them, both in ground and in containers. And some of you wanted an update on the avocado that was attacked by the gopher. And I have one for you, and unfortunately, it's not great. We're pretty much a goner at this point. So either later this month or next month, I'm going to be getting a new avocado. I will show you how to plant an avocado when I plant that one. I also have 4 citrus trees here that need to be planted later this month. So stick around for that. Last but not least, if you're in a climate where you can grow tropicals outside, now is the time to cut them back and clean them up. And each tropical has its own special way of having that done. Well, I did a video on that earlier this week or maybe last week where I cleaned all this up, and you guys that watched it said it was very satisfying. And it was. That's kind of why I showed it. Anyway, while it is technically spring, we are, most of us, still inching our way toward feeling like spring. But if you learned something from this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Share it with a gardening friend, and I'll see you next time.